Today, I want to share my experience renting a Tesla Model 3 on Turo for the very first time. Last year, I took a trip to California and decided to rent a Tesla through Turo instead of going with your traditional car rental company. We drove it from San Diego all the way up to San Francisco and then back down the coast. In this video, I'll walk you through my experience using Turo, the good, the bad, and whether I think it's worth it. Let's get into it. For those who don't know, Turo is basically the Airbnb of cars. So instead of renting from a big rental company, you rent from individual car owners. They list their own personal vehicles, set their own pricing, and decide things like delivery options, mileage limits, and more. Even somebody like you could probably have your car listed on this app in a matter of hours. What makes Turo great is the variety, especially when I was in California. You can rent anything from a budget-friendly compact car to a luxury or exotic vehicle. And in my case, I went with the Tesla Model 3 because, well, I had to experience an EV for a California road trip. To be honest, I had never driven an electric car before, and I figured if there was any place to do it, it would probably be California. The booking process was super easy. You just go to the Turo app or the Turo website, you enter your location and the dates that you want to rent the car, and then you browse the cars that are available. Each listing shows the price per day, the mileage limits, the delivery options, and even reviews from other renters. Reviews are important, so I made sure to check with a renter who had many great reviews before I booked. I found a Tesla Model 3 for a pretty reasonable price, around $108 per day for 8 days, which brought the total to $868. And keep in mind, when I rented this car, I was under the age of 25, so we were charged an additional $240 for that. So this total also includes $179 of charging that was invoiced at the end of our trip. So if you actually factor out the fuel cost, it would only have been $688 to rent a car for over a week. Now, how you pick up and drop off the car depends on the owner. Some owners offer delivery to the airport, while others require you to pick it up. And in my case, I picked it up at the designated location that I mentioned to the owner, which was the hotel that we were staying at in San Diego. So it was a super easy process. The driver pulled right up to the hotel, and then we both had to take lots of pictures for insurance purposes, which is required by Turo. The car was clean, charged up, and ready to go right when we picked it up. Then he showed me how to use the car, which was a little bit different since I've never driven a Tesla before. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, especially with the minimalist interior and no physical key. He gave us access directly in the Tesla app. So all I needed to do was to use the app on my phone to lock, unlock, and basically control every aspect of the car, even air conditioning, for example. So that was pretty neat, as I'm somebody with a car that only has Apple CarPlay and I have no dedicated way to control my car from my phone. So it did feel pretty futuristic. And this Tesla was not even one of the newest ones. It was just a 2018 Model 3. And now you're probably wondering what the experience was driving the car. And overall, I would say it was quite an amazing experience. The car got us from point A to point B very quickly, reliably. The car would always drive super smooth, and the instant acceleration from the car was definitely a highlight from the trip. If you've never used an electric car before, you could certainly notice the difference in speed right when you would first accelerate. Another benefit of the Tesla was the Autopilot feature. When it worked on our car anyway, it was great to just tap a button in the midst of heavy traffic and I could take my foot off of the pedal and just let the car do its thing. Our car was not equipped with full self-driving, so I did not get to experience that, but the Autopilot worked when I needed it most, and it did help reduce the strain of driving, especially in the heavy traffic, which was definitely my biggest complaint in California. While I did enjoy driving the car, I did have a few comments about the maintenance, and this is where I could see some renters having a bad experience using this app. I'll be honest, the car could have been a little bit better maintained. It was a reliable form of transportation, yes, but there were a few things that I would not have expected to happen with a traditional car rental company. First, the door jamb on the passenger side was not sealed correctly, which doesn't affect the driving necessarily. Like, we were never concerned that we would not be able to get where we're going, but because of this improper sealing on the door, sometimes it would sound like we were on the outside of a roller coaster versus the inside of a car. It was just not great when the car is loud on the interior and you could barely hear the person sitting right next to you. It just kind of diminished the experience a little bit. Second, while I mentioned that I did love the autopilot, that was when it worked on our car. Most of the time when I would activate it, it would work just fine, but there were also numerous occasions when it would give me a random error message on the screen and warn me that it would not work. I believe one of the cameras had a sensor or something that needed to be fixed. There were also a few times that I could activate it and the car is driving, but then the autopilot would just randomly quit and I would immediately need to take over the car again. And honestly, this was pretty frustrating. And by the end of the trip, I had to stop using the autopilot feature because it was just not working 100% of the time and I kind of couldn't trust it. These two issues were small for sure, but something that I wanted to note because they did impact my experience on the trip in a slightly negative way. While these don't impact the ability to go from point A to point B, car maintenance is definitely a very important aspect of a rental. And I did almost expect perfection in this category, which is not quite what we ended up with. My experience renting the car was great, however, and the seller was always super responsive to text messages about when and where I would be dropping off the car. We always made sure to fully charge the car before he picked it up. Since we were flying out of San Diego that night, we dropped the car off. The owner picked up the car directly at the Airbnb we were staying at, and then we didn't have to worry about it in the morning, which was awesome, and honestly just the kind of service that you wouldn't get from a traditional car rental company. So overall, was renting the car on Turo worth it? Let's break it down. I would say the pros of Turo is that it does provide ultimate flexibility when it comes to picking up and dropping off a car. Do you want to pick up the car at the owner's house? Do you want to pick up the car at the airport? Do you want the car delivered to you at an Airbnb or a hotel? All of these are options when renting on Turo. You simply have to communicate with the owner of the car. Another huge pro is that Turo was often cheaper than renting a car from a traditional car rental company, and it does away with all of the useless fees like multiple drivers. Yes, they did not charge us for having more than one driver. All I had to do was just add another driver in the Turo app. Saving money is also very important. So if renting a car on this app is a way to save some money on a trip, you absolutely should take advantage of that. Since all of the sellers are competing with each other for the best rates, you can find any car for any price point on this app. Even Teslas, for example, range from $100 a day to $300 a day. So there's basically a price point no matter what you're looking for. Now, that may have been specific to California because it's a very large state, but another pro was that you had complete control over the vehicle that you wanted to drive. When I rented cars with a traditional car rental company, you often pick the type of the vehicle. While you picked a sedan, you don't know what brand or what type of vehicle you might end up with. With Turo, you search by the specific car or specific location and you know exactly what car you will end up driving, which is almost any vehicle that you can think of. If you want a sedan, a coupe, a truck, or like a luxury vehicle, they were all on here. They have options for everybody, and having more options leads to superior flexibility, and having more options is never a bad thing. Now to the cons, and there are a few things that definitely would need to be addressed. The biggest con of the service, which is similar to Airbnb, is that your experience solely depends on the person that you are renting from. What if the owner doesn't show up and you need them to? What if they do not deliver the car to the right spot? What if they completely forget? These are things completely out of your control, but if any one of these things happens, your trip could be ruined. Now, having a trip ruined most likely will not happen, but the possibility is there, which will be a turnoff for some people. Another con for many situations is that there's no one-way returns with this service. When you rent from a traditional car rental company, there are places all around the country where you can return the car, often for a fee, but for some trips, this might be essential for you. Let's say you want to pick up the car in one spot and drop it off in a completely different. That you can do on a traditional car rental service. With Turo, there is nothing available. You don't know what kind of condition the car will be in. I talked about trips getting ruined before. Well, there are more ways that a trip might be ruined if you rent a car through here. How would your trip turn out if your car broke down? Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone. There is a chance of any car breaking down at any point on a trip. That's kind of a given. My car did have a couple maintenance problems. Cameras were not working and the car door jamb was not sealed correctly. Now, this is not the car breaking down, but this would all depend on how well maintained the owner keeps the car. And do you honestly think that all of the owners will maintain their cars as good as a car rental company? Nah, I would lead towards no, as I'm sure there are a lot of owners that are looking to make the most money possible with this service. So why fix a problem before it even exists? There are ways to avoid this, and I would stick towards renting newer cars with not quite as many miles from owners with very good reviews. Reviews are a very important aspect of Turo, so actually take the time to read through them and make sure that you're going with a reliable owner. The extra research might save you a ruined vacation. While renting with Turo, mileage is also something to consider and something that might be a con of this service. Most car rental companies provide unlimited mileage, but the owners of cars on Turo will definitely be much more protective of the wear and tear on their vehicles. So make sure to check how many miles the owner offers with the rental compared to the estimate that you plan to drive. With that being said, overall, I personally had a great experience using Turo for the first time, and I would definitely do it again in certain locations if I were ever able to get a newer, more reliable vehicle from a highly rated owner. Just be sure to check out reviews, check the mileage limits, and make sure you do your research if you plan on using this platform. Have you ever rented on Turo before? Let me know your experience in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for money-saving tips. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, and I hope your day is as pleasant as you are.